They say every bride glows the night before her wedding. But Evelyn Marlowe didn't glow. She trembled. It was past midnight when she called her sister, whispering through the receiver like someone was listening. "If something happens to me, don't believe him. Promise me you won't." Those were the last words anyone heard from her. The morning of May 17th should have been perfect. Her dress, custom lace, hand-stitched, hung untouched by the window. Her bouquet, lilies and soft blush roses, rested in a vase beside it. But Evelyn, gone. No forced entry, no broken glass, no sign of struggle, just absence. Marcus, her fiancé, claimed she was excited, that she kissed him goodnight, laughed nervously, said she couldn't wait. But detectives later noted something odd. His suit jacket had a smear of red on the sleeve. He said it was wine. Her mother found Evelyn's phone still charging on the nightstand, something Evelyn never left behind. And the wedding gown? The neckline was damp, as if someone had cried over it. By noon, whispers had turned to panic. Guests were arriving, the string quartet tuning their instruments. But the bride never walked down the aisle. And then someone opened Evelyn's journal. On the last page was a line, scribbled with a shaky hand. "He says he loves me, but I think he'll kill me first." Why would a woman days away from marrying the man of her dreams write that? And why did Marcus delete all of Evelyn's last messages from his phone before police could read them? The town assumed it was cold feet, that she ran. But her shoes were still lined by the door, heels she picked out 6 months before. So what really happened to Evelyn Marlowe in the hours before she vanished? And if she didn't run, who wanted her silenced? The search began with polite urgency. Volunteers fanned out across the town, combing through fields and back roads. They called her name like it might coax her out from hiding. "Evelyn, Evelyn, it's safe. Come home." But as the sun dipped behind the hills and her place at the altar remained empty, something shifted. This wasn't cold feet. This wasn't nerves. This felt wrong. Detective Alina Rhodes arrived just before dusk. Sharp-eyed and steady-voiced, she scanned the room where Evelyn had spent her last known night. She noticed something Marcus claimed not to see. Fingernail scratches along the inside of the bedroom door frame. Was she trying to get out? Or keep something from getting in? Alina whispered, almost to herself. Then there was the neighbor, Mrs. Calloway, who lived just across the street. She told police she saw Evelyn standing at her bedroom window around 2:14 a.m. Just standing. Motionless. Pale. She was wearing her wedding gown, the old woman insisted. And she wasn't alone. There was someone behind her. Someone taller, darker, like a shadow. But Marcus claimed he was asleep beside her all night. When shown a photo of Evelyn in her gown, Mrs. Calloway's hand shook. That's it. That's the dress. But her eyes, they didn't look like hers. Police reviewed the home's smart lock history. The front door had opened at 2:17 a.m., but never closed again. So where did Evelyn go? And if Marcus was asleep, who opened the door? Back in the bedroom, Alina opened the closet. Among the neatly hung dresses, a single Polaroid photo fell to the floor. Evelyn, with smudged mascara, holding a note up to the camera. Only one word was visible. Run. Was it a cry for help, or a warning to whoever found it? The deeper they dug, the more Evelyn seemed like someone trying to escape a fate she couldn't fully name. But why would a bride, on the cusp of happiness, hide clues in photographs and door frames? Unless she knew, deep down, that someone was planning to make sure she never wore that dress at all. The more Detective Alina peeled back the layers of Evelyn's final hours, the more uneasy the truth became. It wasn't just what Evelyn had done. It was what she hadn't done. She hadn't packed a bag. She hadn't taken her phone. She hadn't even left a note, at least not one addressed to Marcus. But there was one more thing. Hidden in the back of her vanity drawer, beneath old receipts and dried-out mascara, was a crumpled, water-stained page from a journal. The handwriting was shaky, smeared in places, but legible. I see her at night. She wears my face. Alina's hands trembled slightly as she turned the page. The next entry was dated only 2 nights before Evelyn disappeared. He doesn't believe me. He says I talk in my sleep, that I stare at him with cold eyes. But I know the truth. She wants to take my place. And if I wear the gown, she'll win. Alina looked up from the journal, her breath caught in her throat. Was this paranoia? A mental break? Or had Evelyn been trying to warn someone? Anyone? That something sinister was coming for her? Meanwhile, Marcus sat on the edge of the living room couch, his fingers pressed together, his jaw locked. When Alina asked him if Evelyn had ever talked about feeling watched, he shook his head too quickly. No, never. Evelyn. She was happy. But happy people don't write things like, "She wears my face." And they don't vanish on the most important day of their lives. Alina stepped outside for air, her thoughts unraveling. The sky had turned that color between day and night, dusky, uncertain. That's when she noticed it. Across the driveway, beside the trash bins, tucked beneath a layer of black bags, Evelyn's wedding shoes, still clean, untouched by dirt, as if she had never walked outside. The problem? The shoes were dry. The ground was wet. It had rained at 3 a.m. that night. So how did the shoes get there? And if Evelyn left the house barefoot, why were her footprints found in the hallway, leading not to the front door, but back toward the mirror in her bedroom? Alina felt a chill slide down her spine. What if Evelyn hadn't run away? What if something pulled her in? Alina stood in Evelyn's bedroom again, the mirror looming like a witness that refused to speak. She examined it closer this time. The frame, gold-trimmed and antique, had smudges near the edges, almost like fingerprints. But what struck her wasn't the surface. It was the back. Something felt wrong. She pressed her palm gently against the mirror's side and tapped it. Hollow. She moved to the back and found faint scratches, like someone had tried to pry it from the wall. Her heart raced as her fingers traced a faint crack in the wood paneling behind it. That's when she noticed the screws. 3 small ones, rusted, holding the mirror frame to the wall. Not hanging. Fastened. Like it wasn't just decoration, but a door. She called for backup, but deep down she didn't want to wait. With a screwdriver borrowed from the kitchen drawer, she loosened the screws, one by one. The mirror creaked as it released from the wall. Dust fell, the frame groaning like it hadn't been moved in decades. Behind it was a hollow cavity, not large enough for a person, but just enough for something else. Inside was a box, wrapped in velvet, locked. She picked it up, heavier than expected. No key in sight, no label, just a faint scent, like old lavender and metal. That's when her phone buzzed. A message from the lab. You were right. The fingerprint on the shoebox wasn't Evelyn's. It's not even in the system. Alina's chest tightened. She turned back toward the mirror, its ghostly reflection catching her now distorted expression. And just for a second, she saw Evelyn. Not a photo, not a memory, but a flash. A woman in the wedding gown, pale, standing behind her, smiling with lips that didn't move, eyes hollow, still. Alina spun around. Nothing. The air was suddenly ice cold, and on the mirror's surface, clear as day, was a handprint, pressed from the inside. Alina didn't scream. She couldn't. Her breath caught mid-throat as she stared at the mirror, heart pounding so loud it felt like it would crack her ribs. The handprint, smudged, wet-looking, unmistakably human, remained on the glass. But there was no one in the room, just her, and that box clutched tightly in her shaking hands. Was her mind playing tricks? Sleep deprivation? Stress? No. She was trained to know the difference. I saw her, Alina whispered aloud, trying to convince herself she hadn't. It wasn't real, but deep down, something told her. It was. She pulled herself away from the mirror and placed the velvet-wrapped box on the bed. Her fingers fumbled to open it, trying to find a way in. No latch, no keyhole. Just a small indentation on the underside, a symbol carved into the wood. A spiral, almost like an eye. She remembered seeing that symbol before, in one of Evelyn's sketchbooks on the floor. Digging through the pile of torn pages and notes, she found it again. a spiral in red ink. Under it, Evelyn had scribbled one sentence in shaky cursive. It watches through glass. Don't look too long. Alina's skin broke into goosebumps. She checked her phone, no signal. The house had gone silent again. Even the birds outside had stopped chirping. She turned back to the mirror. The handprint had faded, but something new had taken its place. A word, drawn with a fingertip on the fogged glass, slowly appearing, as if someone were writing it from the other side. Below. She froze. Below what? She whispered. A floorboard creaked beneath her, and for the first time, she noticed the faint outline of a trapdoor beneath the carpet. Alina didn't move. She just stared. Something inside her begged her to stop, to leave the house, to call for backup and never look back. But her instincts as a detective, and the haunting image of Evelyn's hollow-eyed smile, pulled her toward the unknown. With trembling fingers, she bent down and peeled back the edge of the rug. Beneath it, old wood, cracked, and in the center a rusted iron ring. She wrapped her hand around it and pulled. The door groaned open, releasing a breath of cold air so sharp it made her eyes sting. Darkness stared back at her, and from within that darkness, she swore she heard it. A voice, whispering her name. Alina! Alina's knees trembled as she stood over the gaping hole in the floor. The cold that wafted up from the trapdoor wasn't just air. It was something deeper, heavier, like the breath of a room that hadn't seen light in years. A place where secrets were sealed with silence and blood. She leaned closer, shining her flashlight into the void. The beam struggled against the thick blackness, only revealing wooden stairs that descended far too deep for any ordinary basement. Each step creaked like a warning, but Evelyn's name echoed in her mind. The sketches, the mirror, the handprint, the word below. This wasn't coincidence. She grabbed her phone and tapped the record button. Detective Alina Grant, entering sublevel beneath the floorboards at 9:43 a.m. Possible lead related to Evelyn Rhodes. Entering alone. Alina swallowed hard and took the first step down. The air grew colder with each footfall. Damp, muffled. The smell of old rot, like soil and rusted iron, wrapped around her. Her light flickered twice but held. Halfway down she stopped. A sound, too soft to be footsteps, too precise to be natural, scraped somewhere below, like claws on stone. Then silence. Her throat tightened. She finally reached the bottom. What she found wasn't a room. It was a corridor. Stone walls lined with broken tiles. A single, swaying light bulb flickered at the end, casting brief glances at the hallway's length. Strange drawings covered the walls, circles, eyes, fractured faces, and symbols just like the one on Evelyn's box. Then came the scent. Sweet, too sweet, like decayed flowers, and something metallic. Blood. Alina pressed on. Her flashlight's beam revealed a door, steel, dented, chained shut from the outside. Someone didn't want what was in there getting out. As she reached for the lock, her phone buzzed, no caller ID. Her blood ran cold. Hands trembling, she answered. She didn't speak, but a voice whispered through the static. Don't open it. She's not gone. She's watching. The call dropped. Alina's heart nearly stopped. She turned around, no one was there. But the light bulb above her popped, shattering into darkness. She could still hear something breathing behind the steel door. Soft, slow, rhythmic. And then, faintly, chillingly, a girl's voice humming a lullaby. The same melody Evelyn's mother had played at her vigil. Alina stepped back, but the chains began to rattle. On their own, something inside was awake, and it knew she was here. Alina froze. The chains on the steel door continued to rattle. Slowly at first, then violently, like something inside was trying to break free. Her breath hitched. She backed away, one step, two. Then silence. Everything went still. No chains. No breathing. No humming. Only the sound of her heart thundering in her ears and the low hum of her dying flashlight. She held her phone tight, its dim screen the only light left. She whispered, as if afraid something would hear. Evelyn, is that you? A single knock from behind the door answered her. Alina nearly dropped the phone. Then the knock came again. Once, twice, 3 times. But it wasn't random. It was rhythmic, deliberate, like a message. She looked closer at the steel door. Her phone's screen cast just enough glow to reveal faint handprints. Child-sized, smeared in something dark. It wasn't paint. Alina turned to run. But behind her, another sound. A voice. Faint, almost like a whisper caught in a memory. She begged them to listen. But no one did. They laughed and buried her cries. Alina spun toward the voice. Nothing. But in her pocket, her phone lit up again. A video file had auto-opened. Confused, she watched, hands shaking. The footage showed Evelyn, smiling into the camera, her birthday balloons behind her. She twirled in her dress, holding a cupcake with one pink candle. She whispered to the lens, "If anything happens to me, check the mirror in the attic." The screen glitched. The smile on Evelyn's face warped. Then static. Alina's blood ran cold. The attic, not just this basement. Evelyn had left trails. Every one of them ignored. Until now. But before Alina could move, a loud bang behind her. The chains on the steel door had snapped. All of them. And the door slowly creaked open, inch by inch, revealing only darkness inside. But from that pitch black, a shape began to form. Not Evelyn. Not human. Not anymore. A cold voice whispered from inside the darkness. "You took too long." Alina stumbled backward, her feet slipping on the damp stone floor. As the figure stepped forward, bare feet dragging, long hair hiding its face. Alina turned and ran back down the corridor. Behind her, the humming started again. Soft, off-key, getting louder, closer. And the words etched on the walls began to glow, one by one. "Return her. She knows. You let her die." Alina didn't look back. But she knew. Whatever was in that room was following her. And the worst part? It still wore Evelyn's voice. Alina burst through the rusted basement door and slammed it shut behind her, her chest heaving with panic. She threw her weight against it, locking the bolt with trembling fingers. But the moment she stepped away, she heard it. Scratching. Not loud. Not hurried. Deliberate. Long, slow strokes against the other side of the door, like fingernails or claws. She stared at it, her breath fogging in the air. The house above groaned with age, the floorboards creaking as if footsteps echoed in every corner. But she knew better. There was no one else in the house, except her, and whatever used to be Evelyn. She darted up the stairs to the second floor. Her flashlight was nearly dead, flickering in fits. She pulled open the attic door, and the cold hit her like a slap, sharp and unnatural. Inside, the attic was exactly like the photo Evelyn posted on her birthday. The same pink scarf on the mannequin, the same dusty rocking horse in the corner. But one thing was different. The mirror, tall, covered in a tattered white sheet. It stood in the middle of the attic like a coffin. Her heart screamed not to touch it. But Evelyn's words echoed louder in her mind than her own fear. "If anything happens to me, check the mirror." Alina stepped closer. Her fingers, shaking, gripped the cloth. She yanked it away. Silence. The mirror didn't reflect the attic. It didn't reflect her. It showed something else entirely. A dark room, dimly lit with candles, soaked in shadows. Evelyn was there, alive, crying, screaming. But no sound came through. Her mouth moved desperately, mouthing something over and over. "Don't trust the man in the uniform." Alina stepped back, gasping. The mirror flickered, and this time it showed her. But not as she was now. In the reflection, Alina was smiling, smiling in a way that didn't belong to her face. Lips stretched unnaturally, eyes wide and void of light. She turned to run, but a hand gripped her ankle. From under the mirror, fingers pale, thin, bone-like. She kicked, screamed, and pulled herself free, crawling backward as the mirror cracked across its surface, fractures blooming like spiderwebs. Blood seeped through them, and then the glass began to ripple, like water. A voice came from deep within the shards. Familiar, chilling, broken. He made me wear the gown. Alina stood, her eyes brimming with tears. Evelyn. The mirror pulsed. A final whisper escaped. He's in the house. The attic door slammed shut. And behind her, footsteps. Slow. Measured. Coming closer. But she never heard anyone come up the stairs. Alina spun around so fast she nearly lost her footing. Her back hit the dusty attic wall, splinters biting through her blouse as her gaze scanned the shadows. But nothing was there. Only the silence. That kind of silence that didn't feel empty, but watched. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She pressed her hand to her chest to steady it, whispering, "Please, not now, not like this." The cracked mirror stood silently at the center of the attic. But the reflection had changed again. Now it showed a wedding. Rows of empty chairs in a forest clearing. A white carpet stained with mud and something darker. A lone figure in a torn wedding gown standing at the altar, veil covering her face, unmoving. The sky above her swirled in unnatural grays. And just behind her, a man in a police uniform holding something behind his back. Alina's breath caught. The badge number was familiar. She backed away slowly, whispering, "No, no, it can't be him." Suddenly, her phone buzzed. Just once. A single notification. She lifted it. Unknown number. Leave the house or join her. Her hands shook so violently she dropped the phone. It landed face up, the screen glitching, flickering between her own camera and static. Except when the camera opened, she wasn't alone. Behind her, a figure, not moving, just watching. She whipped around, again nothing. But then downstairs, a soft knock. 3 taps. Then 2. Then 3 again. Her knees nearly buckled. It was the same rhythm Evelyn used to use when they were kids playing hide and seek. 323, she whispered. That was our code. She didn't want to go down there. But she also knew if Evelyn was alive, if there was any chance, she had to follow the clues. She crept out of the attic, each step down the stairs screaming louder than her breath. Halfway to the first floor, she stopped. There he was, standing in the living room, his back turned, staring at the fireplace. Sergeant Nolan, Evelyn's fiancé, still in uniform, still clean-shaven, still calm, too calm. He slowly turned, his face unreadable. "Alina," he said softly. "You shouldn't be here." She swallowed. "You told us Evelyn ran away." His eyes twitched. "I said what I had to say." Alina's hands curled into fists. "Then tell me what's behind the mirror." A pause. Then a smile, just barely. And he said, "She wouldn't wear the dress, so I made her part of it." Alina's legs nearly gave out. The veil, the blood, the mirror. And in that instant, the basement door creaked open on its own. And the smell hit her. Roses. And rot. Alina stood frozen on the staircase, Sergeant Nolan's words echoing like a siren in her skull. "She wouldn't wear the dress, so I made her part of it." Her breath caught in her throat, choking her from the inside out. She stared at him. This man who had once held her sister's hand, kissed her forehead, promised forever, and now stood with that eerie calmness, as if murder was just another chore. Downstairs, the basement door yawned wider, creaking on rusted hinges like it was exhaling something old, something waiting. Alina's hand brushed the wall for balance, fingers trembling. Her voice cracked when she asked, "What did you do to her, Nolan?" He tilted his head, like he was studying her. "You came back, just like I knew you would. Same eyes, same questions, same recklessness." She didn't realize her feet were already stepping down the last stair. "Nolan," she warned, her voice barely above a whisper, "don't lie to me." "I never lied," he said with that same calm. "I just rewrote the ending." Alina's jaw clenched. She darted toward the basement, heart in her throat. But before she could reach the door, he moved. Fast. Too fast. His hand gripped her wrist like steel. "It's not what you think," he said coldly. "She chose it." Alina jerked back with all the strength in her, but the contact sent memories crashing through her. Flashes of Evelyn's tearful calls, her cryptic messages, the final voicemail where her voice trembled. If anything happens, check the dress. Alina's other hand gripped a photo frame on the side table. She smashed it into Nolan's shoulder. He recoiled, cursing under his breath. She seized the moment, bolting toward the basement stairs. Each step groaned, each breath burned. The air grew colder. The walls dampened. She reached the bottom and froze. The light bulb overhead flickered once, twice, then held. And what it illuminated nearly stopped her heart. A mannequin dressed in Evelyn's wedding gown. But this wasn't a display. The fabric was stained at the bodice. Brown-red, faded blood. Beneath it, the shape of a body sewn into the lining. Alina stumbled back, hand over her mouth. In the corner, a small wooden chest. She dropped to her knees and opened it. Inside, Evelyn's diary. Its pages stuck together, brittle from time and moisture. But on the final page, written in shaky ink. He said the mirror would hide me, but it showed everything. If you see this, don't let him make you wear the gown. Alina's hands shook as she slammed the book shut, but the voice behind her made her spin. Too late. Nolan, blocking the stairs, smiling like he'd waited for this exact moment. Alina's back pressed against the damp, concrete wall. Her chest rose and fell in panicked gasps, the musty air clinging to her throat like a curse. Nolan stepped closer, casual, patient, like a man who had all the time in the world. The flickering light above buzzed as if protesting what was about to happen. You shouldn't have come back, Alina, he said softly. You were doing so well, forgetting. She clutched Evelyn's diary against her chest, fingers trembling. I didn't forget, she whispered. I tried to survive. His smile faded. He knelt slowly beside the wedding gown, her sister's final prison, and touched the hem like it was holy. She was supposed to be the first, he said. The perfect bride. Loyal, quiet, forever mine. Alina's stomach churned. You're sick. I gave her everything, he muttered, voice darkening. But she saw it. The mirror. It showed her what I really am. And then she ran. He looked up at Alina now, something unhinged dancing in his eyes. Do you know what that mirror does? It shows the truth. Not what we hide, but what we become. He stepped forward, and Alina bolted. Her shoes scraped the concrete, grabbing for footing, lunging toward the stairs. But his grip came fast, yanking her back by the arm. She slammed against the wall, stars bursting in her vision. The diary tumbled from her hand, pages flaring open. You were always the favorite, Nolan growled. But I can fix that. He dragged her toward the mannequin. The gown shimmered under the light, its sequins dull with time. But something was wrong now. The mirror behind it moved. Alina blinked, blood pounding in her ears. The reflection didn't match reality. In the mirror, Evelyn stood, pale and wide-eyed in her stained gown, pointing at Alina and mouthing something. Run. Alina's breath hitched. Nolan, she whispered. Look in the mirror. He froze, turned slowly, and saw it. His own reflection, distorted, smiling too wide, eyes hollow, a figure just behind him. Nolan recoiled. No, you're not real. Alina seized her moment. She lunged, grabbing the broken mannequin pole from the floor, and swung, cracked against his side with a sickening thud. He dropped, groaning, dazed. Alina ran, flew, up the stairs. Every step was a scream. The door at the top was locked. She slammed her shoulder into it once, twice, 3 times. Then it gave way. She burst into daylight, gasping, face streaked with tears and dust. But as she turned to look back, one thing chilled her more than Nolan ever could. In the mirror, now propped against the wall, her own reflection stayed behind. Smiling, motionless, watching her leave. Alina stumbled into the open, daylight washing over her like a resurrection. She collapsed on the gravel outside the farmhouse, lungs dragging in the crisp afternoon air as if she hadn't breathed in years. But her relief was short-lived. Behind her, the door creaked. She turned. Nothing. Only the wind rattling through dry leaves, and that old mirror still leaning against the wall inside, still reflecting something wrong. Her own face in the mirror, still smiling, still not her. She blinked hard. No, she had escaped. She was out. She was free. Wasn't she? She clutched her side where Nolan had grabbed her. A bruise was already forming, hot and sharp beneath her ribs. From somewhere deep in the house, a muffled noise echoed, like metal dragging against stone. No, she whispered to herself. Not again. She knew she couldn't leave that mirror behind. Not after what she saw. That wasn't just her reflection. It was something else, something tied to Evelyn, and Nolan, and maybe even her. She made the call. 911. What's your emergency? Alina's voice shook. There's a man in the basement of 123 Woodrow Lane. And a mirror. Please send someone. Just send someone. The operator asked for her name. She hesitated, then said, Alina Cross. Are you safe, Alina? She looked over her shoulder at the house again, at the door that was now slightly ajar, the mirror still inside. I don't know, she said, but someone else is still in there. The diary. It was still down there. She couldn't leave without it. Shaking, she rose to her feet. Her knees nearly gave out. She wasn't done. She stepped back inside. The air was colder now. Still, each step down the stairs echoed like a heartbeat. When she reached the bottom, Nolan was gone. Only the mirror remained, and beside it, the diary opened to a new page. One she hadn't seen before. It wasn't Evelyn's handwriting. It was hers. Alina froze. The entry read, June 14th. I saw her again. The reflection. She speaks to me now. She knows what happened that night. I can't tell anyone. I'm scared they'll think I'm like him. She dropped the book. A low creak behind her. The mirror flickered. Then, clear as daylight, Evelyn's reflection returned. But this time she wasn't alone. Standing beside her was Alina, the mirrored version of herself, dressed in the same wedding gown, the same bruises, the same tear-streaked cheeks. Only she smiled. Slowly, Alina backed away. Stop it, she whispered. You're not me. But the reflection didn't stop. It stepped forward. And so did Alina without meaning to. Her feet moved. Her breath caught in her throat. She wasn't walking. She was being pulled. Alina's legs trembled beneath her, but she couldn't stop moving. It was as if invisible strings tugged her closer. Toward the mirror, toward that twisted version of herself with the icy smile and hollow stare. Her hand lifted, unbidden, reaching for the glass. This isn't real, she breathed. You're not real. But her fingers hovered just inches away, and the glass shimmered. Not a reflection, a veil. And through it, the other Alina moved differently, not mirrored, not matched. She tilted her head slowly, like she was watching prey, then whispered something with lips that didn't make a sound. Alina's ears rang. She tried to back away, but her heels scraped against the floor. The cold from the mirror radiated like winter wind. Her breath clouded in the air. She shouted, Get out of my head! The mirror cracked. A hairline fracture raced across the center, from the reflection's eye, down to its throat. The smiling version of Alina blinked, and a single tear of blood traced her cheek. Then it began to whisper, not from the mirror, from inside her head. You wore the dress. You opened the door. She clutched her ears, but it didn't stop. You read the diary. You looked into me. You're not leaving. Alina screamed and grabbed the only thing near her, the fallen mannequin pole, and swung at the mirror with all her strength. Glass exploded. Shards rained across the basement like a hailstorm. The frame splintered. The reflection gone. Silence. The cold vanished like a breath held too long. Alina collapsed to her knees, trembling, blood running down her forearm from a shallow cut. She looked around. Stillness. Dust danced in the single beam of light that peeked through a basement vent. It was over, or it seemed to be, but when she looked at the floor where the mirror once stood, there was no glass, no shards, nothing, just an empty frame. She reached out and touched it. It was warm, as if someone had just passed through. Then the sound came again. From upstairs. A soft thud. Then another. Footsteps. Alina's eyes widened. She hadn't heard the door open. She hadn't heard anyone come in. She rose slowly, backing toward the stairs again, her hand gripping the broken pole tight. Each step above her creaked. Closer. Then, a shadow appeared at the top of the stairs. And a voice. Calm. Familiar. Alina? It was Officer Granger, the local deputy. Are you all right? The call came in. Dispatch sent me to check. Relief broke through her panic. Down here, she cried. Be careful. He came down cautiously, flashlight sweeping the room, landing on the shattered frame and blood on her skin. What happened? He asked, kneeling beside her. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. It was the mirror. His brow furrowed. What mirror? She turned to point, but the frame was gone. Nothing remained. And behind her, on the far wall, was a small square mirror. Untouched. Still whole. Still reflecting. Only now, it didn't show Officer Granger. Just her. Standing completely alone. Alina staggered backward. Her eyes locked on the mirror. Couldn't be. The frame, the shards, the blood gone. Replaced by a pristine, untouched square mirror, now hanging on the far wall like it had always been there. But that wasn't the worst part. In the glass, it was just her. Officer Granger didn't appear. His flashlight beam didn't show. No shadow stood beside her. She turned toward him, breath catching in her throat. Granger, are you still here? Silence. He was gone. The stairway was empty. The door above wide open, letting in cold air. But no sound, no voice, no sign he had ever entered. She backed up, heart pounding like a war drum. I didn't imagine you, she whispered, trying to steady her breathing. You were here. You called my name. She stared at the mirror again. It now reflected not just her, but behind her, something moved, slowly, grinning. Her reflection's eyes weren't hers anymore. Wider. Too wide. Its lips curled upward like they were being pulled by invisible hooks. A crooked, exaggerated smile that didn't match the panic flooding her real face. And then the reflection lifted a hand. Alina's real hands were at her sides, shaking. But in the mirror, the version of her waved. Mocking. Taunting. You're not me, she whispered, stepping forward. Her voice cracked like glass. I didn't ask for this. I never wanted. The reflection's mouth opened. Wider. Wider. Until it wasn't a mouth, it was a void. A gaping black hole where a scream should have been. And from that darkness came a sound. Low at first, almost like a whisper. Then louder. Sharper. It was her voice. I told you not to wear the dress. You shouldn't have read the diary. You let him see you. Now it's too late. Suddenly, lights above flickered and burst. Sparks sprayed from the ceiling. The air felt heavy, like it was pressing against her chest. The temperature dropped again. Frost crawled across the mirror's edges. And behind her, footsteps again. Different this time. Deliberate. Barefoot. Wet. She spun. No one. But the floor behind her had fresh prints in the dust. Small. Naked feet. Childlike. And they were headed straight toward her. She turned back to the mirror. Now, 3 figures stood in it. Her reflection. A little girl, pale with soaked black hair clinging to her cheeks. And in the corner, barely visible, was a tall, faceless man with a blood-stained collar and hands clasped behind his back. All 3 smiled in sync. Then the mirror cracked again. Only this time, the crack started from the inside. The crack in the mirror spread like lightning, sharp, jagged veins slicing across the glass from the inside out. Alina didn't move. Couldn't move. The sound of the splitting glass echoed through the room like a scream trapped beneath ice. Her breathing was shallow, sharp, her eyes fixed on the image in front of her. The 3 figures inside the mirror were no longer reflections. They were watching her, smiling, waiting. What do you want from me? She whispered, her voice barely more than breath. The little girl tilted her head. The man in the blood-stained collar took a step forward. And then the mirror began to pulse. Yes, pulse like it had a heartbeat. A slow, heavy thump that resonated through the air and shook the floor beneath Alina's bare feet. She stumbled back, the diary still clutched to her chest. And that's when she saw it. A message, scratched into the back of the antique mirror's frame, in uneven, childlike handwriting. Return what was never yours. Her hands trembled as she opened the diary again. The pages had changed. They weren't empty anymore. Each line was written in her own handwriting. Memories she never remembered living. Dreams that weren't hers. Crimes, confessions, deaths. Names she didn't recognize but felt responsible for. Alina dropped the diary. "No," she said, voice rising, cracking. "This isn't mine. I didn't write this." But the figures in the mirror nodded. "You did." In the reflection, her mirrored self reached forward and pressed her hand flat against the glass. And without warning, the mirror shattered outward. Glass flew like razors. Alina threw her arms up to shield herself, but not a single shard touched her. Instead, silence. When she lowered her arms, the mirror was gone. The wall behind it bare. No diary, no shadow, no little girl, no bloodstained man. Just an empty, cracked wall and the sound of distant thunder. Granger's voice crackled through the radio on the desk behind her. "Alina? Do you copy? Are you okay? I lost you for a second." She grabbed the radio with shaking fingers. I'm here," she said. Her voice was hollow, foreign. "Are you all right?" he asked. She stared into the empty space where the mirror had been, then slowly turned to face her own reflection in the window. Smiled back, but her lips hadn't moved. "Yeah," she whispered. "I'm fine." And then, the lights flickered once more. Her reflection blinked, but she hadn't. If you want more chilling true crime stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe to the Veil of Secrets.